Sometimes in football, a player spends years grinding, performing quietly, doing everything right, and nobody notices. And then suddenly, in the span of 48 hours, everything changes. 3 of Europe's biggest clubs start circling, transfer rumors explode, and a defender who was considered solid but unremarkable becomes one of the most sought-after names in European football. That's exactly what's happening right now with Marco Senesi. And this transfer could genuinely change his career forever. Right now, as you're watching this, Juventus, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid are all monitoring Senesi's situation at Bournemouth. Not casually checking, actively monitoring. Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that several top teams are closely following his situation, with Barcelona and Atletico Madrid having taken an interest, and now Juventus have also been added to the list. And here's why this matters. Senesi is currently under contract with AFC Bournemouth until June 2026, meaning his deal is entering its final stretch and the Premier League side could be open to a sale before that date to avoid losing the player without financial compensation. Translation: he can sign a pre-contract agreement with any foreign club starting January 1st, 2026, for free. Or Bournemouth sell him now for whatever they can get. This is the definition of a career-defining moment. Because Senesi isn't some teenage wonder kid with years to figure things out, he's 28 years old. This is his prime. This is the move that determines whether he spends the rest of his career as a reliable Premier League defender, or whether he becomes a champion at one of Europe's absolute giants. And the timing couldn't be more perfect, because Senesi isn't just available, he's playing the best football of his life. But let's rewind for a second, because understanding why this transfer matters requires understanding where Senesi came from. He wasn't always this player. He didn't arrive in England with massive hype. He's Argentine, born in Rosario, the same city that produced Lionel Messi, Angel Di Maria, and Mauro Icardi. He came through Newell's Old Boys Academy, one of Argentina's most famous youth systems, but he wasn't the standout kid everyone talked about. He was just solid, reliable, the kind of defender coaches loved, but scouts overlooked. His big break came when Feyenoord signed him in 2019, and that's where everything started to change. He spent 3 years in the Netherlands, gradually improving, learning to play in a more technical, possession-based system. By his final season at Feyenoord, he'd become one of the Eredivisie's most consistent defenders. Bournemouth noticed. In summer 2022, they paid around £12 million to bring him to the Premier League. At the time, it felt like a decent signing for a newly promoted club. Nothing more. For Bournemouth, he's been exactly what they needed. Over 105 appearances, 6 goals, 8 assists. But the Premier League is a tough place to get noticed when you're playing for a mid-table club fighting relegation battles every season. That's why what's happening now feels so significant. Because suddenly, the biggest clubs in Europe aren't just noticing they're competing for him. Let's break down why each club wants him. Because the reasons are different and they tell you everything about what kind of defender Senesi actually is. Start with Barcelona. La Blaugrana are without Ronald Araujo for an indefinite period, who is prioritizing mental health. While Andreas Christensen could be out for the rest of the season with a partial ACL tear, their defensive depth is thin. They need someone who can step in immediately, play Hansi Flick's highline system, and not cost them a fortune. Senesi can be signed by Barcelona for very cheap, as he is on an expiring contract. Barca, who love their free agent deals, can either sign him for free this winter on a pre-contract deal for next summer, or they can merely sign him for a couple of million euros this winter. For a club with Barcelona's financial problems, that's a dream scenario. Then there's Juventus. According to Matteo Moretto, the Bianconeri have set their sights on Bournemouth's Marco Senesi as a concrete summer target. Largely due to his precarious contract situation, Juventus are rebuilding. They need defenders who can play in a back 3 or back 4, who understand positional discipline and who won't panic when pressed. In Luciano Spalletti's system at Italy, Lloyd Kelly is the designated left central defender, but the English defender does not have a natural backup in his position in the 3-4-2-1 formation. Kelly has played alongside Senesi during his time at Bournemouth, and he can convince the Cherries defender to move to Italy and play for Juventus. That connection matters. Having a former teammate already there makes the transition easier. And finally, Atletico Madrid. Diego Simeone's system is built on defensive solidity. He demands discipline, tactical intelligence, and mental toughness. Atletico Madrid are also looking at defensive reinforcements this winter, with the left-back spot thought to be a priority for sporting director Matteo Allemani. Simeone loves players who can adapt, who don't complain about tactical adjustments, who just do the job. So what happens next? Fabrizio Romano adds that Senesi is more likely to be on the move in the summer than in the January transfer window. That makes sense? Bournemouth are fighting for survival in the Premier League. Selling their best defender mid-season would be suicide. But come summer, the English club may be open to selling him this year in order to avoid the risk of losing him without financial compensation. It's the classic contract dilemma. Sell now for some money or risk losing him for nothing. From Senesi's perspective, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. He's 28, he's in his prime, he's proven he can handle the Premier League's intensity, and now 3 of Europe's absolute giants want him. Beyond his club future, Senesi is also competing for a place with the Argentina national team ahead of the 2026 World Cup. Think about that trajectory for a second. From Newell's old boys to Feyenoord to Bournemouth to potentially Barcelona or Juventus. From fighting relegation battles in the Premier League to competing for Champions League titles, from 2 Argentina caps to potentially starting at a World Cup. That's not just a transfer. That's a complete career transformation. And it's happening because Senesi did something most players struggle with. He stayed consistent. He kept improving, and he waited for his moment. What makes this story so compelling is the uncertainty. Will he go to Italy and thrive under Juventus' tactical discipline? Will he move to Spain and adapt to Barcelona's possession-based style or Atletico's defensive intensity? Or will he stay at Bournemouth, sign a new contract, and bet on himself in the Premier League? Senesi is currently focused on finishing the season in the best possible way with Bournemouth in the Premier League before making a decision on his future. That's the professional answer. But privately, he knows this is his shot because here's the bottom line. Marco Senesi is 28 years old, in the form of his life, wanted by 3 European giants, and 6 months away from free agency. This transfer, whether it's to Juventus, Barcelona, Atletico, or somewhere else entirely, will define the rest of his career. It's the difference between being a solid Premier League defender and becoming a champion at one of football's biggest clubs. It's the difference between 2 Argentina caps and starting at a World Cup. It's the difference between what he is now and what he could become. And we're about to find out which version of Marco Senesi's story gets written. Because sometimes one transfer really does change everything.